All right, let's start the session. What's going on? This is Travis Witherspoon from Carter Cow Capital. This is the first time we've done this in a while, a night episode of Trade with Travis. Hope everybody's doing very well on this evening. I don't know I know I ended up talking about it a little bit earlier this morning. Um, there really wasn't a lot of trading opportunities that I was truly looking to be able to get into this morning just because of how the market ended up falling off based off of the Jackson Hole symposium, based off of Jerome Powell talking and being able to make the market move. Now, remember, I always say it all the time when Jerome Powell speaks, the market moves. So either you need to roll with him or get out the way when it comes down to that movement. And this was one of those days to where the aftermath of what ended up happening based off of that movement was one of those things that you had to truly kind of pay attention to and kind of go from there. Typically, when the market ends up making a strong move to the downside, depending on how the market is actually kind of phasing off, you may end up seeing either a lot of stagnation, or you end up seeing a large retracement back in the opposite direction, especially when the market is humming. And because the market is not really humming in a certain direction, that's the reason why I thought that the market actually ended up falling to the downside, or basically staying stagnant based off of how it ended up doing after falling to the downside. So, with that being said, what we're going to end up doing in this session is going to end up being very brief. We're going to end up taking a look and see if there's any trading opportunities that we can be able to get into. If there's not any trading opportunities, try to see if we can be able to find a setup based off of our Vortex strategy. And then after that, there's no real play based off of that movement. Then after that, we won't do anything, and then just call it a night. But ideally, what I would like to be able to do in these night sessions is to be able to give everybody an opportunity to be able to have some type of trading plan that they can be able to set up, or whether it's pending sales or pending buys, or buy stops and sell stops before being able to fall asleep, so you can be able to make money in your sleep, along with what we end up doing with our automation systems and everything else like that. So let me go ahead and get started. I'm not a CTA, so I'm not going to tell you whether to buy or to sell. What I'm going to do is teach you education, and from the education, you can be able to make your own informed decision. Now, understand that trading involves risk. It involves risk of being able to make money, also involves risk of being able to lose money, so please keep that in mind. And understand that past performance is not indicative of future results, which means that if you end up making money yesterday, it's not promised that you end up making money today. So with that being said, as I go through and take a look at these overall opportunities, what I would like for you to be able to do if you are watching live, and once again, this is the first time I'm doing a night session in a while. So um, if you have not traded with us in a night session, or quite frankly, no one's traded with me in a night session in a while, please go ahead and place out the pairs that you may be interested in. Make sure that you end up communicating and saying, hey, and also make sure that you end up sharing and clicking on that like button, or sharing and clicking on that boost button to allow everyone to be able to see what we're actually doing. Hopefully, be able to make a couple moves with us if there's some type of opportunity to be able to trade with. Now, we are in the Japanese session. Because we are in the Japanese session, there may be some opportunities to be able to take a look at some pairs like the Japanese yen, the Australian dollar, and New Zealand dollar for some overall opportunities. But with that being said, um, I'm going to start off and I'm going to say, everyone, just give me one brief second. Um, I am on daddy watch when it comes down to everything else. Uh, um, yeah, I'm on daddy watch when it comes down to everything else. I got to do one quick thing. Just everybody, just give me one brief second. Okay, we're good to go. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the big three. Because of this night session, and because typically the market doesn't necessarily move as fast, this will give me a time to be able to truly take a look at what's happening and truly be able to make a quick, inaccurate decision on what's actually going on compared to what we end up doing in our morning sessions. Obviously, the morning sessions, you got to be quick to the point and try to see if you can be able to find some stuff. And if there's nothing there, then you try to just make the quick decision to be able to move forward, because sometimes you really don't have that much time to be able to make a move. So taking a look at what's happening with the United States dollar index. Obviously, you've been with us before, especially during the morning sessions. You end up seeing that we end up going weekly, then daily, and then after that, if there's something on the weekly that makes us not want to be able to make a move, then we don't make a move. Something on the daily that doesn't make us want to make a move, then we don't make a move. Obviously, you end up getting into the 2 hour, the 1 hour, the 15 minute. Some people end up going as low as the 1 minute. I don't go that low, but there are some opportunities and it may end up being there. So, United States dollar index, we end up taking a look at this. We end up talking about how this market was going and basically working off of this inner trend line. Because market ended up basically bouncing off this inner trend line, it gave people opportunity to be able to keep on buying it as the market keeps on going a little bit more parabolic to the upside. And because we are getting that look, um, there's an opportunity for the market to be able to complete and go all the way up to 13,512 in the near future. Now, what I'm seeing is this, and I don't know if anybody's starting to notice this, but we may end up having an opportunity to may end up seeing a little bit of a double top. As you notice, that was the first portion of the top. You look at this price, they may end up being somewhat very near each other. The high was 13,161. This one was 13,144. So they're somewhat very close. So if the market ends up retracing off of this, this may end up starting to build some consolidation. We end up seeing natural support at 12,832. We end up seeing that basically end up being a support over here one time before. So if that may end up being the case, then we may end up seeing some type of consolidation. Now, we're getting close to Q4, and because we are getting close to Q4, um, typically from October to January, that's when you end up seeing the biggest push. But obviously, we're not in October. We're getting ready to go into September. So I think that we probably may end up seeing some more wide scale consolidation. I think the consolidation may end up being a little bit smaller than what it has been from the summer months, but I do think that we still might end up seeing some consolidation. So we still have to play it somewhat conservative when it comes down to our overall moves. From a daily perspective, you end up taking a look at this movement. We can see that large wick that ended up getting rejected. We can see that there's a little bit more detail of the natural resistance that may end up being a point. And if this market starts to push to the downside based off of what the stochastic is basically showing us, this may end up being a solid consolidation area to truly kind of pay attention to. With that being said, it's really not confirmed, so I'm really not going to end up saying that we are in consolidation yet, unless the market ends up basically pushing to the downside. Now, with that being said, I would consider not making a move off of this overall pair, which means that I'm not going to end up looking at doing anything off the United States dollar index. Now, I could be wrong. And the way that we'll truly know if we are wrong is if the market ends up breaking above the overall high of this move. Now, if you notice, the daily has a daily D extension at 13,168 that has not been completed, but it ended up hitting the 95% rule, which meant that it got 95% of the way. So that might mean that the market may end up resetting based off of that movement. But overall, there's really nothing to be able to do based off the United States dollar, at least at this particular point in time when it comes down to a move. So currently right now, I'm just going to stay away. Take a look at oil. See what happened with oil today. Oil from a weekly perspective, end up pushing all the way up to the B, which was at 126. That was right when the war for Russia and Ukraine was basically starting. From there, the market has retraced all the way down to the 618 at $87 a barrel. Then after that, since then, the market has been pushing up. Currently, currently the market price is at 96, I believe, 96.70 for this overall move. I'm going to get rid of this because now we can clearly see that the market ended up going to the 618, and which means that now if the market is going to end up trending like typically what it does going into the end of the year, we may end up seeing something like this. Now, this is kind of scary to me because knowing what type of truck I have, if the market goes up to 171, then we're in a a rude awakening when it comes down to that movement. But typically, remember during the winter times, oil ends up hitting its higher prices. Now we're still in September, so I don't expect for the market to be able to truly make a breakout. But I think that the market may end up starting to show a little bit of consolidation as well. We end up seeing that the high is at 129. We're seeing that this high was at 123. That's not necessarily a consolidation type of move, but if this market starts to push up, I think that there is a better chance of this market being able to get at least up to 123 before doing anything else like that. So if I'm looking at being able to make a move off of this, I will at least expect that the market may end up getting up to a 123 before being able to make any other move. The weekly is in the buy zone. Typically, when you end up seeing that movement, you end up seeing about 7 to 11 candlesticks to the upside. Currently, right now, we're looking at of those seven, two of those 7 to 11 candlesticks. So, expect the next 5 weeks, you may end up seeing a little bit of a bullish push going up to the upside. Okay, so that's from a weekly perspective. From a daily perspective, you take a look at it from a Fibonacci perspective, the market has broken. And because the A was broken off of this movement, then we should expect that there's going to end up being a crown or a downside move that may end up potentially happening. Um, and essentially, what happens with that, what you'll end up getting is something like this. Let's see. Where's the A at? Where's the A? This crown is going to look kind of weird, but we'll go with this. We got one, two, three. There goes your center tip. There goes the broken A. A right tip will probably end up matching up somewhere around this overall left hand side, and then after that, you'll see a movement to the downside. So I still think that there may end up being some upside movement based off of this, at least before the market ends up making a true U-turn. But currently, right now, if I had to bank on anything, I would say that the market will move up to the upside. But would I get in currently right now at this particular point? Probably not. The market is a little bit more overbought at this particular case. Okay, so I'm going to stay away when it comes down to oil as well, which means that I'm going to stay away from the Canadian dollar. Let's take a look at gold. Gold has been pretty much stagnant since the beginning of the year when the market ended up pushing up past 2,000. Um, the market has been in true consolidation based off of the weekly. And because it has been in true consolidation based off of the weekly, it makes it kind of hard to be able to make any type of move off of this pair. Let me go back to, geez, you caught me off guard. Time for you to go to bed. Go upstairs. No, time for you to go to bed. Go upstairs.
Daddy, there's something making my Spider-Man stretch.
Okay, so here we go. Taking a look at gold from a weekly perspective, market is still in consolidation. Market is moving more towards support. For the people that end up getting into that buy at 1685 when we were talking about it at support, quite frankly, based off of that counter trend line break, I would not be interested in being able to make a move off of this one. This is a relatively easy one to be able to take a look at. We'll talk about how this kind of correlates with the Japanese yen. Um, I would not look at doing any move off of this pair right now. I will not look at trading gold at all. For me, is not necessarily the greatest thing to be able to look at from a chart perspective because the market is in deep consolidation and it's getting more towards support, but there's still not a guarantee that the market will end up making a move either to the downside or either to the upside. So with that being said, I will not do anything with this, which means that the Japanese yen, once again, I'll kind of stay away from. So what does that mean? We end up taking a look at three different pairs. We end up taking a look at all three of them are not necessarily in the most ample position to be able to get into. That means kind of stay away when it comes down to Forex pairs. So with that being said, I'm not going to end up paying attention to any Forex pairs based off of what I'm seeing tonight because nothing is truly ready. We go and take a look at what's happening with the economic calendar. We don't see, and I don't see anything that's going to end up being very important from an economic standpoint going into tomorrow. And then after that, going into Wednesday, that's when we end up seeing some stuff that's happening with the eurozone. But the eurozone has actually been down a little bit. So the only thing that will kind of affect anything that I'm probably taking a look at is probably the GDP from the Canadian dollar. But we talked about what's happening with oil, and we said that oil has to be able to break above on a price. But there is a better chance of oil being bullish more than anything else. So that may end up being one of those things or one of those pairs that I would try to pay attention to going into tomorrow morning before being able to make anything. Now, let's go over the index pairs, and if we don't find anything off the index pairs, today end up being a quick day. But we end up going on from there. Steve, what's going on, man? A long time no see. How the boys doing? The boys are doing just fine. My oldest one just came downstairs, like always, when he ends up hearing me talk, and he's about to go to bed. Uh, my my baby girl, in which just came on, she just came into this world on the 24th. She's actually laying beside me right now. So hopefully she's getting immersed with all of the trading that we do inside of this house. So hopefully she's learning from just hearing me talk. And maybe her first word, maybe I don't know, how by him node or something like that. I don't know. Ask him any stop tips for me. Um, uh, that'll be the first thing that I end up asking him when I end up going upstairs. But the one thing he keeps on saying is bye, bye, bye. He loves saying bye. I'm good with that. Let's see. So, US 30. We take a look at it. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Stephen K. Forex. I do appreciate that. So we take a look at this from a weekly perspective. We can see that the market is showing a downtrend. Obviously, it's something that we expected. The one thing that I truly do like, and we talk about this all of the time, the weekly is in the sell zone. Because the weekly is in the sell zone, that may end up meaning that we may end up seeing 7 to 11 candlesticks that may end up moving to the downside. Had our fourth challenge on the 21st as well. Congratulations. Congratulations. Um, with that being said, I do think that we're probably going to be in a rude awakening over the course of the next 2 months of the market actually end up moving more to the downside, especially if the market ends up breaking this counter trend line to the downside. But it gives us a lot of opportunities to be able to see or try to be able to get in on some movements that may end up being a little bit more explosive. So obviously, I'm going to look at this as being short-term bearish. We end up getting a evening star candlestick that ended up happening last week based off of the weekly, which means that going into this week, you probably may end up seeing that the market may retest that overall candlestick formation before truly making a move. That's the reason why earlier this morning I was kind of like, hey, I'm not necessarily interested in being able to make a move. I got to see some type of retracement first before doing anything. But this is the beginning of a transition trade. If you don't know what a transition trade is, that's when the weekly and the daily were in the sell zone at the same time, which means that you can stay in the trade for at least 2 to 3 months, or you can be able to just ride the sell trades from that 7 to 11 days over and over. But taking a look at this move, like I said, there was really nothing today. Market ended up breaking down to the downside. We ended up having a indecision candlestick earlier today. I didn't expect anything with the market moving 1,400 points or 1,200 points on Friday. We could truly see that the market started to show a little bit of consolidation. I tried to do a little bit of a scalp, and I was able to make $100 based off of this move, where I ended up seeing a consolidation. We ended up having a little bit of a breakout. You go based off of the 1 hour and you kind of zoom out based off our strategy. We can see that this market may end up retracing up to 32,400, which is this bottom of this low volume node. That would be the only thing that I may end up being interested in if there is a true counter trend line break to be able to get in. But once again, that's trading against the trend, and that's a big no-no when it comes down to what I like to personally do. I'd rather trade with the trend on this move. So that's the reason why I went with a 1% trade off of this. I would rather see the market just retrace up to that position and not do anything. But as this market is building the consolidation, we can try to build out what this box is going to end up taking a look like, and then after that, we can truly be able to know when this market is going to end up making a move before doing anything. That is the medium volume node, but there's no true consolidation yet. Obviously, we're in day one of this consolidation. Typically, you notice the market has been maybe 5 to 6 days before truly making a move to the downside, kind of like right there. So I would kind of expect that we probably might end up seeing, maybe if we get a big move, it may end up pushing up, consolidate down, and then after that, kind of build out this overall consolidation block before being able to push. But low volume node is from here to here. Um, from there to 32,400 is probably the best position to be able to make a move off of. So US 30, not gonna end up making a move off of it yet. I end up taking a little bit of a trade earlier today. Probably not gonna end up taking a trade. I'm probably not gonna take a trade on it right now. I still kind of wait this one out to see what happens. Typing a wire, yes, if that makes sense. There's truly nothing to be able to do. Now, there goes the counter trend line break. You're truly interested in being able to get into the trade, I would say wait for that counter trend line break to be able to make a move off of. Let's go ahead and go with Nas 100. Nas 100 is same deal. It didn't have a drastic move like US 30 did, but we can truly see from a weekly perspective that this market is doing the same thing from a transition trade perspective. I'm going to clear. Let's see, remove the drawings real quick. We can clearly see that there's a counter trend line break, and we can clearly see that there's a downtrend that's starting to form over to the downside. So that's something to be able to really pay attention to. Give me my drawings back. There we go. Um, but this market ended up hitting the 5.0, and since then, if we take a look at that, that could fall all the way down to 91.82 from a Fibonacci standpoint. I wouldn't stay and hold a trade that long. I just basically pick my spots when it comes down to movements. But that's what it could potentially fall down to. So we have a true counter trend line break overall from a daily perspective. We end up having a retest. The market has moved down. We are in the buy zone off of this one. So it kind of goes back to what I ended up saying before. We end up having an engulfing candlestick pattern on Friday that covered up this movement. Typically, the next day or the next few days after that, you'll probably end up seeing a little bit of a retest. It is bouncing off of the 50-day moving average, but that doesn't necessarily mean too much. I think that the market is still going to end up pushing to the downside. The only moves that I would be interested in truly for being able to get into a large scale move would be to the downside. Now, this one didn't necessarily build a lot of consolidation or build a consolidation block, but we do see that there was some highs that the sellers end up taking out or basically end up rejecting based off of that. So I'm going to call this the consolidation block. We can see on the high volume node, we just for 6 from the bottom profile that this is a high volume node that's kind of building out. If I'm looking at making any position off of this one, or starting to build a position off of this one, it will be below this one. I would say at 12,390. 12,390 will probably end up being the area where I would look at being able to place in a pending sale stop. Question is, where would it potentially go? Let's see. We go based off of history. If it breaks below 12,390, it exit this high volume node from a daily perspective. If we go based off of the next high volume node that matches up, the safe position to be at 12,170. The natural position where it could potentially fall down to will end up being at 11,940. Okay, so off of this one, I'll probably look at being able to place in two orders. Potential sell stop at 12,390. I'll place the stop loss above the overall highs because that's how much are we talking about here? Okay, let's see. Short position. There'll be a 200-point stop. Okay, that's a better look of it right there. Okay, so here stop loss will be just above the overall highest point of the high volume node. I'll be risking 118 points going after 293 with a risk reward factor of 1 to 2.4. Mr. TG, what's going on? Hope everything's going well. Morning. Okay, okay, that's great. It's evening for us. So, what part of the country are you from? If I'm placing in a pending order, I'll probably look at building that one out, or at least try to see if that one's going to end up playing out. 12,394. Let's see. Let's see. Was it 12,000? I said 12,390. If you truly want to be safe, I would say 12,385 to allow it to be able to move below that actual support. So you're not getting wicked in, and then the market ends up bouncing up. Remember, we're only in the first day of this, so it may not necessarily break, uh, may not necessarily break fully until it actually ends up having a few times or be able to tap. Um, so I would say 12,390, or say 12,380 to 12,390, depending on your risk appetite. Stop loss. Jeez, could I spill tonight? I do it just above the high. Let's say 12,515. TP. I'm gonna give two take profits, but I always stress on the one that's the easiest. The one that's the easiest will end up being right here, 12,100. 12,100 will probably end up being the easiest one without having to fight, and without necessarily having to worry about a lot of stuff. So 12,100 will be the first one. Um, Matter of fact, it'll probably be the only one that I'll pay attention to. Yeah, it'll probably just be that one because I think that it probably might consolidate a little bit more once it ends up breaking that position. So there we go. Yeah, it's 9:30 for me as well. Let me tell you why I'm doing this, and hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense for the people that have not been with me before. Let's see. I'm actually in North Carolina. I was actually in Florida earlier doing. Let's see. What's up, Travis? Do you cover? Absolutely. I cover setups. I don't. It doesn't necessarily matter about what it is. It can be gold. It can be Bitcoin. It can be anything. So we'll take a look at that real quick. So we can see that the market volume truly drops off from 74 to 66, and then after that falls from there. Once it ends up falling into that area, if we go based off of the hour and we go based off of what we end up looking at previously, the next biggest volume that actually ends up pushing up is that 2.616, which means that there's an unfair market price between here to here. So that's the spot that I'm looking at being able to take advantage of. If you look at that, that kind of matches up with the overall previous resistance from the market being in consolidation from June 20th all the way until July 22nd. So that will be the next trade that I'll look at being able to get into before being able to make any other move. I think that's the safest trade. I think that's the one that will probably end up giving you less of a headache. So I'm going to place that in as a pending order. That will be the next order that I would do based off of based off of Nas 100. And if you're interested in being able to learn how I end up doing this is my vortex strategy that I've been working on over the summer. Obviously, we know that over the summer times, the market gives us a lot of consolidation, and really and truthfully, sometimes automation systems, sometimes your regular strategies where you're just looking at trending markets doesn't work. And I really been working on this one for a while. It's been very profitable over the summer. We end up doing over I want to say doing over 120% on Nas over the summer compared to what we ended up doing last year. So if you are interested in being able to learn about that, just type in me or go to the private chat and just type in a message with me, especially if you're a friend, and just say me and send me your email address, and I'll set you up for one of the meetings that we end up having that's coming up this week. But I like to sell. Pending, I like the pending sale 12,380 or 12,390, depending on your risk appetite. You want to be a little bit more conservative. I'll say 12,380. Stop loss 12,515. Take profit 12,100. That would be the order that I would look at being able to place in. I'm going to leave this up for a second. Then after that, we'll take a look at DAX, and then after that, we'll leave off with Bitcoin. Any questions on that? Anybody have any questions on that? I'm going to leave this up for one quick second. I'll be right back. Mm, 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 mm. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at German 40. So German 40 is doing the same thing. But once again, we're getting a little bit of a bear flag as this market is trying to make a move. We end up making this move when the market ended up pushing to the downside on Friday. All of them basically end up hitting based off of that. When I think I talked about it on in our morning session that I kind of panicked on US 30 because I wasn't necessarily in front of the computer to be able to do it. That was a big mistake because that was a very big gain. I should have got way more than what I got off of that move, but that's neither here nor there. Profit is profit. But you take a look at this from a weekly perspective, we can see that the market is making a move to the downside. It's also in the sell zone. We can see that this market is pushing to where it could go all the way down to 10,380 from a downside move. It's getting close to the B, and if it ends up breaking the B, then pretty much it'll be in free fall from this overall movement. The one area where it will probably end up holding off, or if it does break 12,000 or 12,160, if it breaks 12,160, then just know it's probably going to end up going into free fall to the downside. So just keep that in mind. Take a look at this from a daily perspective. Once again, the market is in the buy zone based off of the movement that ended up happening. We can clearly see that there is a trend to the downside as the market is basically making that movement. But we go from an hourly perspective and start to kind of build out what's actually happening. We have not created a consolidation area yet. And because we haven't created a consolidation area yet, the question is this a continuation trade where we're just looking at a counter trend line break to the downside, or would this be the true, or would this be the beginning phases of the consolidation that may end up happening? Obviously, if you take a look at this, we can see that this was the medium volume node that's starting to be able to build out. The high of that was at 12,967. The low of that was basically at the support of 12,007. I'm going to say 12,715 just to be safe, which means that this consolidation, if it remains to be that way, will end up being this box right here. There's no trade to be able to place in yet because it has not rejected yet to be able to show that it is consolidation. And I would be way more timid on this one only because it has not hit the support at least twice to be able to say that there's a true trade to the downside if it does break down there. So I think that the first move will probably end up being a false move unless there's a true counter trend line break and we end up getting some news that end up will push in the market, will push the market to the downside. So for this one, I'm going to wait until the morning to kind of see how the market reacts. There's no trade to the upside. I'm not going to look at buying. The only thing that I'm going to look at, only thing I'm going to look at is selling. So I'm not going to do anything with German 40. So we'll stay with that one. Keep that in mind and just know that there could be a potential move that may end up happening in the near future. Let's go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin real quick. And if there's any pair that y'all want me to take a look at, once again, because the evening sessions are um, pretty slow, y'all can go ahead and place that inside of the chat box. I'll go ahead and take a look at that. Everybody, just give me one quick second and I'll go ahead and build this out real quick. Now, see, Mary, answer this question. Are you looking at buying or selling? Are you just trying to long-term invest, or do you trade it for buying and selling? Kind of looking at selling. Okay. Or you can see that obviously this is following the same plan. And I do like this built up consolidation because it means that when it breaks, it's going to pop in whatever direction that it pops. It's going to end up making a big move. There goes your vortex area right there. Here's the consolidation right here. Low volume node right there. Right here, right here. Currently, right now, this is what we're looking at. There goes your medium volume node. I think it needs a little bit more time to kind of build out something because you notice when it fell down right here to this natural support at 19,530, it really didn't give a second tap. But if I'm looking at being able to place in a sale based off of that order, we end up having to be below 12. Okay, let me rephrase that. I would get in early at 12,760. What, you don't like my analysis? You don't like my analysis? No. um, I'm sorry, 19,760 will probably end up being the area where I would look at possibly being able to get in if I'm going to end up creating a sale off of this. Now, if it does break above 20,380, it has a good chance of being able to push back up inside of this node, back up to 20,940. But currently, right now, I would actually kind of wait this one out. But if I'm placing in a sale, my sale will end up being right around that 19,740 area. Now, the question is, where could it potentially go? Let's say, that was my coded tip. That was my coded tip, and I missed it. Check it at the replay later. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think she liked my analysis on that one. I think she said be more aggressive. Let's see. Uh, Let's see. Huh. Okay, so natural support right there. Everybody, give me one quick second. Okay, I'm gonna finish this up without being on camera. Uh, but if I'm looking at it and I'm saying if it's gonna end up falling anywhere, it could go all the way down to 18,920 um, for the overall drop zone that it could be able to go into, and that's going based off of the previous support areas where it was. Um, and if I'm paying attention to any move based off of what we just talked about, I would say let me go into the 15-minute real quick. So 18,000. I'm sorry, 19,780 would be the area where I'll look at being able to place in the sale. Come on, baby. 19,780 would be the area where I'll look at being able to sell. My stop loss will be above the point of control of a couple days ago, um, which ended up being at about basically 20,030. And then after that, I would look at taking it all the way down to 18,920. I'm gonna go ahead and call this one. Obviously because my baby's kind of making a little bit of a fuss. But hopefully they end up helping out. Hopefully they end up helping out everybody when it came down to the moves. We did have a pending order that we ended up placing and getting set up, which was the entry at 12,380 or 12,390, depending on your risk factor or depending on how aggressive you want to end up being. Stop loss at 12,515 with a take profit of 12,100. I'm going to see how that kind of plays out this morning or plays out going into the morning. If we need to adjust it, then we will. But other than that, I think that is the one solid position that we could kind of build out. But once again, we're only in the first day of this market kind of consolidating. So it doesn't necessarily mean that just because we end up getting into it and the first move actually happened, that the market will end up having a big push to the downside. It just may not be there. So just keep that in mind. We just kind of play that out. Like always, plan your trade, trade your plan. Everyone, y'all have a good one.